A mock scrape is one of the best, and I'm guessing one of the easiest habitat improvements you can install on your property. And in this video, we're going to show you exactly how we create ours to give us opportunities at the local deer herd. Almost every deer that walks down this deer trail and heads to the food source just behind the camera will be hitting this scrape all season long. Now we focus on one of two things when we're making a mock scrape. We're either using a beech tree branch or we're using a grapevine. And the reason for that is that's what the deer typically scrape under here naturally. Now, a couple things you want to make sure you're watching out for when you are using the grapevine for your mock scrape, and that's just that you are actually grabbing the grapevine for your mock scrape. On this property, there are 3 vines that are everywhere. One is the grapevine, the second one is Virginia creeper. If you can see that there's actually Virginia creeper on the tree next to me. And the third is poison ivy, which is on a tree over there. Virginia creeper and poison ivy look similar, but the grapevine doesn't look anything like them. The grapevine will be hanging off the tree more, the poison ivy and the Virginia creeper will be clinging to the tree. And Virginia creeper has 5 leaves, poison ivy has 3 leaves. But if you see anything that's clinging to a tree, stay away from it. Make sure you're grabbing the brown grapevine that's detached from the tree. So for setting this grapevine mock scrape up, it's pretty simple. You're gonna only need a couple things. You're gonna need some type of a saw, whether that's a hand saw. I guess you could use a chainsaw. It's overkill, but you could use that. You're gonna need some sort of rope. I use paracord. So in Michigan, I just run down to Meyer. That's basically it. And then if you have a trail camera, a trail camera. But you don't need a trail camera. You just need rope and a saw and maybe a ladder, depending on how tall the tree is and how old it is. The first thing that we're really doing when we're getting these vines set up is we try to find a vine that's right around 1 inch in diameter and right around 5 feet long. We'll cut it. It's sometimes really nice if you can find like a knot in the vine and cut it just above the knot. That way when you tie your knot around it, it has something to kind of latch onto. If not, you can always take your saw and put a couple notches in the vine, and then your rope will slide right into those notches and hold it firm. The second step in this process is just finding a spot for the mock scrape. You cannot put these anywhere. I was talking to someone and showing them videos of our bucks on mock scrapes, and they're like, holy cow, we don't even need food plots anymore. I'm just gonna hang a ton of mock scrapes. That's not how it works. One, you don't necessarily want to have a ton of these things all over the place. You can have a few on the same trail because then they're going to hit each one along the same trail. But if you start spreading these things all over the place, the movement is going to be so sporadic you're not going to know how to hunt these deer. The whole point of this stuff is to pattern the deer movement. And if you have a ton of mock scrapes everywhere, you're not going to know where to hunt. You want to put them on an already used deer trail, whether that's one you created yourself or the one that the deer are using naturally. This deer trail, if you can see behind me, is one the deer used naturally. We did enhance it a little bit. We made it a little bit wider. We cleared out, we moved some of the logs out of the way. We cleared the debris out. So they have been using it a little more since we've done that, but they were using it anyways. So this would have been a good spot for a mock scrape anyways, but hopefully they use it a little bit more. So now that we figured out that we have to have this on or relatively close to a deer trail, now we got to figure out where on the deer trail to put it. And we put ours in between either bedding areas, meaning in between buck bedding and doe bedding, or in between bedding and food, meaning in between doe bedding and food. Now, that same trail can go through all of it. So you could have multiple mock scrapes on the same trail, meaning one in between buck bedding and doe bedding, and then one in between doe bedding and food. Another great spot for a mock scrape, I wouldn't necessarily recommend hunting this one, but would be out in your food plot. The reason I wouldn't necessarily hunt this one is because if you sit on a food plot long enough, you're eventually going to spook deer. If you spook deer, they're going to feel the stress, and that stress is going to send a ripple through your property, and then your chance of shooting a mature buck is going to drop significantly. That's a completely separate topic all in itself, but I just would not hunt your mock scrapes in your food plots. However, you can put a camera on them if it's hidden well enough, and that's actually a great way to get an inventory of the bucks in the area. Once we figured out exactly where we want to put it, we got the trail, we've got the location. This one is in between doe bedding and food. We are going to hang it. So then all we do is we get the paracord, we tie a rope, we tie a knot around the vine, we go up to the tree, we'll pull the tree down, we'll tie a knot around the tree. Typically try to put it about waist high. For me, it's I would say that's 3.5 feet. And again, it's right at nose level for a deer. This is in cover, meaning it's not in the field. If it's in a field, it's going to stick out no matter what, but when you're in cover, you want to make sure that there's not really a whole lot of competition for this vine. What I mean by that is if there was a branch coming out to here or a branch coming out to here, you want to get rid of those. You want this thing to be the only thing in the area that the deer is going to see. So when the deer walks up, that's it. There's no other competition for this vine. This vine is it. They will gravitate towards this and they'll use it. The next thing that we need to do is clear off the ground beneath the scrape. And what I like to use for this is a steel garden rake. You don't have to use a steel garden rake. You could use a stick, or you could use the handsaw that you use to cut the vine. But what's nice about the rake is you can clear away the leaves, and you can also rough up the dirt. And roughing up the dirt within the scrape helps, just so it's not so compacted, so when the deer go to use it, they can actually paw the dirt and work the dirt a little bit better. As far as scent goes, I'm not using anything now or during the season. I'm just letting the deer do everything for me. They're going to be rubbing their preorbital glands on this and urinating in the scrape all year long, so I don't really have to worry about anything artificial that I'm placing in there. Now that we have our grapevine set up in the right location, now it's time to set up a tree stand. You want to make sure you're hunting downwind from the scrape and from the deer trail. So deer trail coming down like this, hitting the scrape. The primary wind direction is west. So we have a tree stand 25 yards that way. 25 yards from the stand to the center of the scrape. Perfect bow shot. Now, if it was an east wind, we could not hunt the stand. I know some guys will put a stand on this side of the scrape, hunt the east wind. However, if we do that, our scent is blowing into a doe bedding area. We can't do it. So this particular location, we can only hunt it with a west wind. And the final step for setting up a mock scrape, if you have one, is throw a camera on it. So guys, find yourself a grapevine or beech tree branch or whatever your bucks like to scrape under naturally, and go make yourself a mock scrape.